And thank you for connecting to Essential Connections with Kalamazoo Behavior Specialist Association. We have a phenomenal panel for you tonight as we discuss family fun activities and how to also support and engage with instructional lessons. So this evening on our panel, we have Miss Angela Davis.
It's Angela Justice.
Angela Justice, got it wrong. Look.
It's
Miss
okay.
Angela Justice, and Miss Angela Justice is with KPS, Kalamazoo Public Schools, and she is one of the coordinators for TLS, Teaching and Learning Services.
Thank you. I am the coordinator of English Language Arts, Social Studies, and Library Services for Kalamazoo Public Schools. I have been in education for 20 years. I've taught preschool, first grade, third, and fourth grades. I've also been a reading recovery teacher, a literacy coach, and right now, literacy is my passion. And occasionally, I teach undergrad as well as graduate reading courses at Western Michigan University. Thank you.
And we also have Matt, also with TLS as a coordinator. If you can introduce and tell us a little bit about yourself, Matt.
Yeah, first of all, thank you for having us this evening. My name is Matt Johnson. I'm the math and science coordinator for the district, and I've been in this position for almost a decade now. Before that, I've taught in elementary and high schools and focused a lot of my work on development of curriculum, and as well as participated and led some summer camps. Um, and I think the biggest thing that I can bring to this is trying to really instill the love and fun of math that I have to try to share that with everyone. So I appreciate the opportunity.
Wonderful. We also have with us Miss Abra Steps. She's our from KidNet. She's the out of school time development coach. So I'll let Miss Abra speak a little bit more about herself.
Hi, thanks. Thank you. So I am first a mom. So I have a soon-to-be teenager and a teenager. And I'm also a previous educator for KPS. I have also worked as a parent educator and family advocate, and then also as a family engagement coordinator. And now I am working in out of school time programming as a program development coach, and I'm also a life coach. So I like to incorporate holistic wellness, and so families are my passion. Just holistic health for the family and community.
So let's get into it. Family engagement, family fun, family activities. What is that? What does that look like to you? Let's start with Ms. Steps.
All right. So that looks like just depends on the family. So deciding on what the interests are of the individuals involved and just coming together to do something together that's bonding, that's is also going to create education, and depending on what you're doing, it can also build the social emotional learning skills. So just finding a way to come together. It can be something as simple as watching a family movie together, to playing games. It just depends. But that togetherness, and in that togetherness, it creates so much more synergy.
So when we are bonding together and creating this synergy, right? Nobody thinks about, well, how can you include literacy? How can you include math? So what do we do with that? Angela or Matt?
So I'll start with that. So literacy encompasses reading, writing, speaking, and listening opportunities to have young people engage in. One of the ways I encourage that a lot of times is just through the whole idea of cooking, because everyone needs to eat.
Mm-hmm.
And so what does that look like? Young people, children telling the mom or dad or whoever is their adult in their life what they would like to eat for dinner. And they can help plan recipes or menus for the entire week. And so what that looks like is that the children are talking about it together. They're coming up with different different menus for the days of the week. They're then writing out what those ingredients will be. And then they're going to the grocery store, and it's up to them to locate those items on their menu list. So they're getting in some reading, they're getting in some conversation in there. And then when they come home, actually sitting down and allowing the children to plan out the recipe for what that meal is going to look like. And so then again, there's some writing involved in that. And then there's also some reading in that. And then even with the measuring and things like that, it's the whole math pieces in there as well. And then the family sitting down together to just talk about what's going on in their lives for that day. What went well that day, what didn't go so well, what are some ways you can fix what didn't go well, and how are you going to use what went well for you to apply it to something else. So literacy is embedded in so many ways, and it's just tapping into what is unique about your family and making it work. But I always start with the dinner table because everyone has to eat. So, and how many
So
people
true.
want to come around food? So food is always a good way to start.
That's a perfect way to blend everything together. To add to that, I brought a couple little tools with me. So at the dinner table, one of the fun things I like to do is conversation starters. And so, I mean, you can get these anywhere. I got this one for 85 cents. It's just a little birthday party game with questions on it. And so I'll have my kids choose the card, or they can choose a conversation. Also, there's an activity that we do with Kid Network. We get it from the Weichert program. It's called Rosebud Thorn. And it's a way to really get to know each other's heart and have a conversation at the dinner table or wherever. And so a rose is something that you'll share that's going well for you right now, or something you're really happy about. A bud is something that is not happening right now, but you're looking forward to it. And then the thorn is something that's not going well right now for you. And so you're able to see all the sides, of yourself, different parts of your emotions and what's important for you, and being able to hear that from each other. So I love that dinner table thing too. And you can just use conversation starters to get the conversation started, unless your family just dives right in.
Absolutely.
Well, I'd like to add to that too. And in the planning a dinner and doing all of those things, going to the store, everything has math in it. Mm-hmm. And I think involving your children in the types of things that are required to run a family help them understand the importance of being together, but also what goes into being a family, and then how it's so connected to the mathematics that they do every day. Because I think there's some people that might view mathematics as something that is not necessarily their favorite, or they don't like math, but realizing that math is a part of everything they do, from the moment they get up to the moment they go to bed. They're doing mathematic activities, and just pointing that out in all of those activities, especially when you're cooking dinner, when you're looking at fractions, you're looking at how long do we have to cook, how hot does the oven have to be, what happens if we go too long or too short. And that's pretty high level math. It's really algebra you're looking at. So it's just a wonderful example for parents to help their students understand how they use math. In the schools, they're learning all the skills, but at the home, that's where they're really putting their math knowledge to use. And I think that's the great example of just getting them involved in the types of everyday activities, and then pointing out where the math or where the social skills or the English and literature skills are involved. So I think participation in everything will help students understand what it takes to be a family, and then the application of what they're learning in school.
Yeah, that way they don't even realize they're learning math. It's just an everyday thing.
So when you think about family fun activities, you use something as simple as dinner time, sitting at the dinner table. And what I heard from that is something that you're doing it anyway every day, right? You're not spending extra money because you gotta buy groceries, you gotta eat, right? So it's money you're already spending. So I say that to say, when you mention family activities, right? Family fun, does that mean that you have to go out and spend, $200 at Craig's Cruisers? Can you talk a little bit about that?
So I think the everyday items are crucial, and how do you maximize the use of that? One of the things that I used to do with my son, we had a journal that we passed between one another. He's older now, so he, of course, thinks everything is, he can do whatever he wants to do. And one of the things I allow him to do is to say how he feels about certain things, because one of the things I'm trying to teach him is also how he needs to advocate for himself. But how do you do it in a way that's not going to create other issues for you? So if you're not having your way, you're not going to lash out and throw chairs and do all of that kind of thing, or be disrespectful to adults. So we role play having those conversations. But prior to that, I purchased a journal for him. And it's just a notebook that I've gotten from the dollar store. And I put a note in there and I say to him, write any time that you didn't like something that I said, or something that I did, or a decision that I made. And he had to write it out, because it really got him to the point where he was able to put his thoughts on paper, rather than lashing out and saying things that's going to get you in more trouble. So I say that to say, you don't have to spend a whole lot of money to enjoy your family time. And a lot of times it's just about having conversations, sitting down and talking with your children, not just always talking to them or at them, telling them to do this and do that, but actually having a conversation with them. And kids, they'll tell you the truth if they're allowed to say it. I grew up in the time where I was seen and not heard. And, times have changed. And I want for my son to be able to articulate certain things in a way that's going to actually get him the results that he needs in the end. So that fun, it just, or anything that you're doing with your family, it needs to be embedded in the role that the household already has in place. So you don't have to spend a whole lot of money to just spend quality time with each other.
And I think on the math side, you can make a game of everything. Just put a timer on it. All right, you have 2 minutes to clean your room or pick up the laundry. You have, let's see how many dishes we can wash in the next 10 minutes. So either keep score or put a timer on it, and you've made it into a math game.
You all made some really good points. Just to highlight something you said, Miss Angela, talking with as opposed to talking to. So a question I have for you guys, what are some of the ways you find you can learn your child's learning style through family fun engagement, whether it's the cooking, I know you pointed out the mathematics involved in that, and the literature and learning about emotional, because you don't want to make your child feel uncomfortable or necessarily target. What are some ways you're able to find out what they're more drawn to, that kinesthetic or auditory, or just different learning styles?
I think it's really just observing, just really paying attention, just watching them kind of over time, and seeing like what they gravitate towards. Like my oldest, he prefers auditory and, just talking. He doesn't want to do a lot of physical things. And so we'll do things together, that are just more relaxing. And then my youngest is really busy and he wants to be active and move around and, be around other people. And so, we'll do things that are more active and, upbeat, that my oldest son doesn't want to do. So I think really just observing, just, listening, watching, asking open-ended questions of them, and just kind of seeing what their preferences are from there.
Good.
What I also heard is that you create, from all of you guys, it's about creating that emotional connection. And in
Mhm.
creating that emotional connection, it's a lot about conversating and being able
Mhm.
to communicate. And in
Mhm.
that communication, asking open questions, not yes, no, not,
Mhm.
I think, I don't know, maybe, but questions that'll really allow your children to formulate a whole sentence.
Mhm.
Right. And that is what we also do as behavior specialists when we are talking with children about the choices that they are making, in the classroom, as well as, I think all of us on here are parents that, that we do with our, own children, as well. So when you are playing a game, let's just say, um, let's Twister, right? How can you turn a game such as Twister to not just be about right foot, left foot, green, blue, yellow? How can you make a game as such engaging to have that open communication, add math or literacy within the game as such?
That's funny you say that because my son is an only child. And so we had to do a lot of that. Like that's how he learned his sight words. Put the word the on something green or red in Twister. So it's a matter of thinking about how the game works and then transforming it into a way to help kids learn how to read. One of his favorite games growing up was Monopoly Junior. And one of the things I told him, I said, okay, well, we're going to play it. You had to be the banker one week, or you had to be the person that's reading all of the cards, the chance cards or the
Mhm.
challenge cards. He had to read those. And that was just a way to use the game as a baseline, but it also was a way for me to incorporate again those reading and writing skills in there for him. And then just the conversations about, well, what does this mean? So he's getting vocabulary in there. He's
Mhm.
understanding how to count left to right, how to
Mhm.
count the numbers on the die, and how to look at those numbers and say, oh, this is a 5. So if I move 5 more spaces here, I'll be there. It really helps in using things that are already prepared to say, okay, how can I extend this just a little bit more? And of course, just having kids be read to, reading to kids at night. One of the things a lot of our children miss out on is the whole idea of lap sitting. And that's when your child crawls on your lap and they're sitting with you and you have that book open and you're just reading that book with them. Kids love that and they need that. Even at 12 and 13 years old, they, as much as they're hands off to that,
Mhm.
they still like to get close to their mom, their dad, or the adult in their life and just be close to them. And so use those opportunities to take advantage of their closeness. Because at some point they don't want anything to do with you. And I'm speaking from experience here. They don't want much to do with you. But take advantage of those opportunities. And that's where that whole idea of observation came up that Abra talked about.
That's good. I was going to ask you, Angela, before you mentioned it too, how old do you think is too old to stop reading, with them?
Never too
But
old.
exactly. I think too, it depends on what you choose. So I found that, my oldest wasn't wanting to do it as much, depending on what we were reading. And so I got one of those poem books that are really funny. And so they love that because it was just funny poems, that we're reading, but we're still sitting together and I'm holding them close still. And they're all enjoying it, but it's, just about whatever's going to make them laugh or whatever they're interested in too. And then also that made me think of when my kids were younger, Uno is our classic game. Love
Mhm.
Uno. And so I
Mhm.
think just like Angela mentioned, that a huge part of literacy is just the speaking and listening. And so, in playing any game, but especially for me with Uno, you're talking, you're conversating, they're having to listen and watch to see where things go. You're teaching the colors and the numbers. You can do triples and doubles with Uno to, increase the math skills, Matt. And so, just simple games like that already have literacy and math built into them, even if you didn't add extra things with them. So.
And I think playing those games really helps students with a concept that we're really trying to support in the school, and that's perseverance.
Mhm.
When you're playing Twister
Mhm.
and there's only one green and you got to put your hand on it, and if you have to stretch way out, and either your son or daughter gives up, and I have a son that wants to give up if he can't win, and we have to talk about perseverance all the time. You're not going to win every time, but when you work at it, you're going to get better. And that's the same thing that happens in the math classroom. You might not get it the first time or the second time, but when you persevere, you're going to see that you can get better. So I think that's one of the great ways anytime you're working with a game is to remind your son or daughter about perseverance, and then when you are getting a math assignment and they're working through it and they're getting frustrated, you can remind them about the game. Well, remember we played hard, and then you practice, you got better, and then you got successful. That's going to be the same thing that happens with this math. It might be difficult now. You just need to practice, and then you'll find success.
Awesome.
What I hear you guys kind of talking about a lot is just that being intentional with your kids and those moments that maybe you don't think about as teaching or learning moments, but they really are. I mean, you can be just walking outside, and whether it's a nature or, you know, it's all those things that it doesn't have to cost the money is what I keep hearing, which is great. You know, you're really thinking about those everyday things that you might do and just focusing on those and growing that relationship, which is really important. I appreciate that.
And now more than ever, we're around our family more than we would have been, you know, with busy schedules, sports, or extracurricular activities. A lot of those are cut out right now. So we have those opportunities to really engage and really like get to know your family members. Sometimes we run so much and it can be like being in a house with strangers. You know, that's not everybody's case, but a lot of times that is the case. So it's really good that you can create conversation around family engagement, and you're learning as well. Math is a big thing for my family, so I'm trying to incorporate the vocabulary, probability, and ratios and common denominators, because math is sometimes a subject that some kids shy away from. Some kids really gravitate toward it and love it, but I love that. I love that you guys are just opening my eyes even to different opportunities and ideas.
It's funny that you guys, when you brought up, oh no, I was like, whew, in my house,
That's an intense.
we get real competitive. We all, you know, the children, we get real competitive, and we found ways to switch the game up. And let me say my children have found ways to switch the game up and create their own rules. And so even my daughter, you know, in helping my son, her brother, learn his multiplication, it's, well, you know, if you are going to put down the multiple colors, what is it called? Like stacking, then, you know, you have to
Triples
be
and
able to
doubles.
multiply that, you know, all together, and, you know, the doubles, yeah, and how much is that? And so it makes it fun. And then if you get it wrong, then you have to draw that many cards. And it gets real deep. Wait a minute, you know, wait a minute. It gets deep. So, you know, with playing games and, you know, doing what works for your family, what fits best for your family. And also I hear, you know, Matt saying, I hear Angela saying, taking the opportunity to seize the moment, maximize the moment, and fit in where you can, which to me sounds like at all times, right? That academic knowledge for your children.
Definitely. I also have something they probably don't, they're mad that I make them, but before they can get on any technology after school, because they're already on technology now during the day, they have a few things to do. So, you know, of course, chores are on there, but then also check-ins, and they ask why do we have to do this? And I told them it's because I wanted to know your heart. I want to know you deeply. And I want us to be connected, and I want you to know me deeply and how I'm feeling and doing right now too. And so before they can get on any technology, they have to fill out it's a dry erase sheet. Let's see. It has different faces on it, different moods. And so they have to put a, you know, mark by what they're feeling. And then they also have to circle a way that they can be kind to themselves or care for themselves based on how they're feeling. And so sometimes we talk about it throughout the day. Sometimes I'll just look and see what they did just to get more insight into how they're feeling. And at first, they ask all the why questions, but they enjoy doing it. They do it without me having to ask now. So, and then in the summertime, I would also incorporate writing with that. So they would write about whatever they circled, just to add more writing time during the summer. But I guess it could be done any time of year.
I think that's so important for young people to know how to describe how they're feeling. I was watching this last week, and I think the gentleman that spoke talked about how sometimes we limit feelings to happy, sad, or mad.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
sometimes they're not that.
Yeah.
Sometimes they have other feelings going on. And I think our young people need to be able to recognize what those feelings are, but they also need the appropriate ways to express those feelings.
Mhm.
And that's where the journals come into play for me.
Yeah.
At Christmas time, again, my child is just a single child. And so he gets stuff from all over, for Christmas. And I'm like, okay, this is way too much, but yet he's still asking me for things. So the way I got him out of that was I said, well, here's the thing. If you want all these things from me, you're going to have to write why you want these things and why
Okay.
I should get them
Mhm.
for you. Like you have to persuade me to purchase
Mhm.
these items for you.
Yeah.
He used to try to do it. And, when he's 5 and 6 years old and he's trying to do it, I accept it. But as he got older, I'm like, no, you need to add a little bit more to this,
Mhm.
and that sets the student up for that argumentative writing that they have to be able to do in
Mm.
high school. And then even in college,
Yeah.
all of us have been to college on this broadcast here. So we know you have to state your point and then give some supporting details as to why
Yes.
and wrap it up.
I love
So
that. Persuade
yeah.
me.
Yes, persuade me. And that cuts them down on asking, because a lot of times is can I, and we're constantly saying no. And they're like, why? And that just repeats the cycle. So it's cut down on quite a few things. My
Yes.
son doesn't like all of that, but I'm like, I don't want to keep being asked for the same thing after I just said no.
Mhm.
That's
Yep.
great.
We do that with money too. So, so math, financial literacy, budgeting. And so lately I've been asked for a lot of Roblox cards. And so a game that my youngest likes to play. And so, so they're getting an allowance. And so we talk about, how much he's going to save versus how much he's going to put towards, the car that he's going to buy eventually. And we're just constantly having those conversations around the things that they want and, how much they still have to go to get there and just budgeting for those things, but also saving. And so those are great ways to incorporate math too, just those everyday conversations of what they want, the things that they, are asking you for and wanting. My oldest just purchased his first PC, and he had to earn that money over time. And we told him that we would give him money towards it once he earned a certain amount. And he was very focused on that. And so was able to do some additional activities and help other people and advocate for himself when, he needed to add extra money to his pot. So I think that's a great way to incorporate math to that realistic, money, spending, saving, all of that.
For sure. And then they really know where it comes from.
Mhm.
It just doesn't come out of the air. And at our house, we have the chore list, and each chore gets its own price too, or payment. And then we have discussions about, well, that's not enough. And so we do have some that are pretty high priced, like outside picking up the dog poop, and you get quite a bit of money for that. And then when it comes to items, they see the worth of that, and they make those decisions because, yeah, I could get candy or at the store, but I'm trying to save up for this other thing. So they see the value and worth of things too. So I really think that's a great connection between um, basically what amounts are and what the worth is and how that translates mathematically.
Wow. Wow. So we talked about self-advocacy. We've talked about perseverance. We've talked about creativity and being innovative. These all sound like great qualities that we want for our children, right? For the youth, that we serve. So how do we continue to foster those characteristics? How do we support our families in continuing to foster those same characteristics that we've just detailed in this entire conversation through family, engagement activities?
I think sharing responsibility is a big one. Incrementally increase the responsibility that your children have in participating in the daily household activities, and I think that pushes them to understand why they're doing it, and if it doesn't get done, there's a consequence for that. And if we didn't plan out what we're going to eat, we're going to eat the things that Dad likes all week. If we didn't do the dishes, or we didn't do our journal writing, there's consequences for that. So I think just increase the responsibility that the children have in participating in the daily family life really makes it so that it's worthwhile.
Mhm. Yeah. I also think modeling the characteristics that we want to see, in them, and being intentional about having conversations when we're, doing something specific, or when we're noticing something that they're doing that matches a quality that we want to continue to see them have, pinpointing that out and being specific, and saying, you really did a great job with this and this and that, and that's this characteristic. And so just being, specific and intentional, and having conversations about what you're doing and what they're doing, and modeling what you want, but like I said, adding conversation to it, not just allowing them to see it, but making sure they see it by having those conversations about what you're intentionally doing.
I also think it's about being willing and open as a parent to try something different. Parenting is hard. It's a hard job, and many people do it successfully. I think all of our parents did it successfully. We're here where we are. It's a hard job, and you as the parent, at the end of the day, you run that household. And so you have to run your household the way that works for you and your children. And sometimes people aren't going to agree with it. I've been told I give my son too much opportunity to tell how he feels. But I do that because it's helped him in the long run. He's able to advocate for himself the appropriate way. And so I think sometimes we have to be open and willing to say, you know what, this is not working. So I've got to try something different. And being able to try something different is a kudos to you, because you recognize something's not working, is impacting my child in a way that's not so good, or in a direction that I want them to go in. And so changing it up for yourself, I think sometimes is good. And people, not all people are touchy-feely either. Sometimes our kids need just a hug sometimes, and just, I think a lot of that is being in tune to your child, and really being aware of where your child is. Sometimes they don't need that scolding, because they learned a lesson because of the results of their actions. And sometimes they just need you to say, did you learn your lesson? What was that lesson? Okay, come give me a hug. I still love you. Now let's move on, and we won't do that again. I just think sometimes we have to be aware to be able to try something different sometimes.
Essentially, we're training our kids, our little people, to get out into the world, and we want them to have good qualities, good characteristics. So it's good that, really through socialization, learning, family engagement, playing, you learn everything, sportsmanship, you're learning personal space. And, like you said, sometimes my boys want hugs, and sometimes they're like, Mom, you're too close. And whereas my daughter, she loves to cozy up and we'll get blankets, and it's just, figuring out that balance. But there's so many things that go into just playing and engaging. There, you can really learn so much. So great points from all of you.
Well, guys, does anyone have any closing remarks?
Well, I think for mathematics, even if you hate math, Don't let your kids know.
Don't let your kid know.
Don't say,
Got it.
yeah, I hated math too. You can
That's good.
say, yeah, math, it can be tough for some people, but, and maybe it wasn't my favorite subject, but look how much I use it now. Or just stick with it. You're going to get better, and I'm going to help you. So yeah, so make sure you keep it a secret if you don't like math.
And I'll
Yeah.
just
Too
say
late.
that I'll just say that reading is not just solely left to a book. It's
Mhm.
so much more than that. You know, reading is about speaking. Reading is about listening, observing, watching people's body languages, their facial expressions, and their responses to you. It's not always in a book. And so pull out some recipes, pull out some newspaper articles if you can find them. Newspaper anymore, a magazine article, you know, graphic novels, comic books, the cards in the game, having your children read the directions on anything. And they have to, even those little toys. My son was very much into Legos as a young child. And so I made him read the directions. I'm like, if you want to put it together, you've got to read the directions, because mom is a little directionally challenged sometimes. So I'm gonna admit that. But he figured it out. So reading is not just solely in a book. There's multiple ways to read and make reading fun, because learning to read can be very hard and challenging for some young people. But when you pull it out of that book and they're doing it here or in this situation, it helps. It helps in that learning process.
Good.
Definitely.
Well, if that is all, that is it for this evening's edition of Essential Connections. We've made such a connection tonight about family fun activities, how to engage as a family while also incorporating academics with literacy and math. And we appreciate our panelists for coming on this evening and bridging that gap and making that tie, that essential connection for our families. That is all for this evening. Good night.
Thank you.
Thanks.